Ladies and gentlemen, stop whatever you are doing right now. Put down your phone, pause your scroll, close every other tab, and give me the next few minutes of your undivided attention. Because what I am about to share with you is not just a sports story. It is not just a financial headline. It is not just another endorsement announcement buried in the business pages of a tennis magazine that nobody reads after Tuesday. What I am about to tell you is a story about love, about sacrifice, about a little girl who left everything she knew at an age when most of us were still figuring out how to tie our shoelaces properly, and who just repaid the two most important people in her life in the most breathtaking, heart-shattering, beautiful way that any child could ever repay a parent. Welcome back to Court Vision Plus, the only place on the internet where we do not just watch tennis, we feel it, we live it, we celebrate it like it deserves to be celebrated. And today, oh today, we are celebrating something so monumental, so genuinely historic, that I had to take a full minute before recording this just to collect myself. Because this one hit differently. This one hit right in the chest. Alexandra Eala, the pride of the Philippines, the Southeast Asian sensation, the girl who packed her dreams into a suitcase and flew 10,000 kilometers from home before most teenagers have figured out who they are, has just put pen to paper on a jaw-dropping, earth-shaking, absolutely staggering $15 million endorsement deal. $15 million. And the moment that ink dried, the very first breath she took after signing that contract, she turned around and did something that has since broken the internet into 1,000 beautiful pieces. She retired her parents. Done, finished, taken care of forever. No more alarm clocks, no more sacrifices. No more parenting from 10 time zones away over a video call that keeps freezing at the worst possible moments. Riza and Mike Eala, two extraordinary human beings who poured everything they had and everything they were into their daughter's dream, are now free. And that, dear friends, is the headline that matters. So stay with us, because today we are going deep. We are breaking down every angle of this $15 million bombshell, the emotional message that sent the entire internet into full meltdown mode, the decades of sacrifice that built the foundation for this moment, and what this financial earthquake means not just for Alex Eala, but for the entire future of tennis in Asia and beyond. You are in exactly the right place. Let us get into it. First things first, let us talk about the number, because $15 million deserves its own moment in the spotlight before we move on to everything else. In the world of professional tennis, endorsement deals are the quiet currency of power. They are how you know, beyond rankings and trophies and match statistics, that the commercial world has looked at you and decided you are worth betting on at the highest level. And $15 million is not just a bet. It is a declaration. It is a statement of absolute market confidence in who Alex Eala is, what she represents, and where the people writing these checks believe she is going. To put that number in context, this is not the kind of deal that gets handed out routinely to promising young players. This is the kind of number that gets discussed in boardrooms for months before anyone puts anything in writing. This is the kind of number that lands on the desk of a global marketing executive and requires sign-off from 3 levels above them. This is the kind of deal that brands reserve for athletes they genuinely believe are going to define a generation. And Alex Eala, at just 20 years old, has just received exactly that level of confidence from the global commercial world. Sources inside the tennis endorsement industry, and trust me, those conversations are happening everywhere right now, describe the deal as a multi-year partnership with a global commercial giant that covers the full spectrum of what modern brand ambassadorship looks like in 2026. We are talking official brand representation, extensive social media campaigns crafted for multiple markets simultaneously, exclusive product lines bearing her name and identity, and a public appearance schedule that reflects her status as one of the most recognizable young athletes on the planet. The specific brand operating behind this deal remains locked under non-disclosure agreements tighter than the dress code at Wimbledon's members' enclosure. But the financial footprint is impossible to conceal. This is generational wealth. This is the kind of money that does not just change your life, it restructures your family's entire financial trajectory for the next 2 or 3 generations. And that is before Alex wins a single Grand Slam title. That is the part that is making people in the tennis world sit up very straight in their chairs and pay very close attention. Why now? Why $15 million before a Wimbledon title? Why Alex Eala in 2026? The answer is actually deceptively simple once you understand how modern sports marketing actually works. Brands at the global level are not just buying what you have already won. They are buying who you are, who loves you, and who will change their purchasing behavior because your face is associated with the product. They are buying community. They are buying narrative. They are buying the aspirational weight of a story so compelling that it writes its own advertising campaigns. And right now, in 2026, nobody in the world of tennis has a more compelling commercial story than Alexandra Eala. Over the past 18 months, we have watched her climb the WTA rankings with a relentlessness that has left opponents and analysts alike scrambling to recalibrate their expectations. From cracking the top 50, a milestone that triggered what can only be described as a national celebration across the Philippines, to her deep runs in Miami, to her absolutely historic performances at the US Open, Alex has demonstrated with increasing and undeniable clarity that she is not a regional curiosity. She is a global force, and global forces attract global money. The Asian tennis market is the sleeping giant that every major sports brand on the planet has been desperately trying to unlock for the better part of a decade. They watched the commercial supernova of Naomi Osaka transform Japanese tennis culture overnight. They saw what happened when a player with genuine, authentic roots in an underrepresented tennis market breaks through at the elite level. And now, in 2026, every one of those brands has their eyes locked on the same person. The spirited, left-handed, relentlessly determined young woman from Manila who turned up at the Rafa Nadal Academy as a child and decided she was going to change the history of tennis in her part of the world. She has, and the commercial world has finally caught up with what the fans already knew. But $15 million is not purely about marketing metrics and demographic analysis. There is something else at play here. Something the people writing those checks understand instinctively even if they struggle to quantify it in a spreadsheet. The tennis world calls it the Eala effect. When Alex plays, the stands do not politely applaud. They transform. Filipinos arrive in droves, draped in flags, chanting her name, turning quiet and stately tennis cathedrals into something that feels more like a championship football match in the middle of Rio. The energy is physical. It is infectious. It crosses language barriers and cultural divides and reaches people who have never watched a tennis match in their lives. Brands pay extraordinary sums for that level of authentic, unmanufactured emotional connection. And Alex Eala has it in reserves that most athletes spend their entire careers trying and failing to develop. Now, if the $15 million is the thunder, what Alex did immediately after signing is the lightning that preceded it. The moment that hit everyone right in the solar plexus and turned a business story into something far more profound. She did not post a photo from a luxury car dealership. She did not share a video tour of a new penthouse. She did not announce a designer collaboration or a lavish vacation. She sat down and wrote the most raw, unfiltered, achingly honest message about the two people who made everything possible. The words that have since been shared hundreds of thousands of times across every social media platform imaginable. I do all of this for them. It's time for them to live in peace. They worked so hard for me. Now it's my turn to take care of them. Read that again. Slowly. It's time for them to live in peace. 7 words carrying the weight of an entire childhood spent across an ocean. 7 words that contain within them every missed birthday, every video call that dropped at the wrong moment, every match her parents watched on a pixelated stream from the other side of the world because they could not afford to be there in person. 7 words that collapse the entire arc of the Eala family's extraordinary journey into a single sentence of devastating simplicity. The internet, predictably and beautifully, lost its collective mind. Within hours of this message beginning to circulate, Alex's social media pages transformed into something that felt less like a celebrity's comment section and more like a global gathering of people who needed to say something true about their own families. Parents were tagging their adult children with nothing but a heart emoji and a quiet hope. Adult children were tagging their parents with shaking hands. Strangers from the Philippines, from Spain, from Japan, from the United States, from countries that have never produced a tennis player of any significance, were writing long, personal, vulnerable tributes about their own parents' sacrifices. The universal human thread that Alex's words pulled on was not tennis. It was not money. It was the particular, specific, almost unbearable love that exists between children and the parents who give everything for them. That is what $15 million bought. Not a car, not a house, not a trophy shelf. Peace, her parents' peace. And the world saw it, recognized it, and wept. To truly understand why this moment carries the emotional weight that it does, you need to understand who Mike and Riza Eala are, not as the parents of a famous tennis player, as people, because these are not your standard issue tennis parents from the sports biography template. They are something rarer and more remarkable. Riza Eala is herself a decorated athlete, a former competitive swimmer who won bronze at the Southeast Asian Games. She did not arrive at the decision to support her daughter's tennis career as an outsider to the world of elite sport. She arrived as someone who understood, with a precision that only lived experience can provide, exactly what she was asking her daughter to endure. She knew the loneliness. She knew the doubt. She knew the particular psychological weight of being a young person whose entire social and emotional world is subordinated to the pursuit of athletic excellence. She knew all of that, looked at her daughter, believed in what she saw, and said yes anyway. That is not blind parental optimism. That is informed, clear-eyed, courageous love. Mike Eala is, by every account, from coaches, tournament officials, fellow tennis families, and players who have crossed paths with the Ealas over the years, the definition of a supportive presence, calm where others would panic, steady where others would waver, the kind of parent who figures out how to be exactly what their child needs rather than imposing what they want to see. Together, Mike and Riza made a decision that no financial model would have supported. They decided to invest in their daughter's dream at an elite level, knowing full well that the return on that investment was far from guaranteed. Professional tennis is one of the most brutally expensive sports on the planet for aspiring elite players. The numbers involved in developing a young tennis player from promising junior to world-class professional are genuinely staggering. Academy fees at a facility like the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, where Alex received her foundational elite training, run into the tens of thousands of dollars every single year. Then layer on top of that the coaching costs, the equipment, the international travel, the accommodation, the nutrition programs, the physiotherapy, the sports psychology, and the dozens of invisible expenses that most people never think about when they watch a polished professional athlete compete on their screens. You are looking at investment figures that would cause most financially comfortable families to think very carefully, let alone families for whom those numbers represent a genuine and significant stretch. And Mike and Riza made that stretch, year after year, match after match, tournament after tournament. Not from inexhaustible reserves, but from a love that refused to calculate the odds. But, and this is the part that gets lost in the financial conversation, the money is actually the easier sacrifice to describe. The financial cost has numbers attached to it. The emotional cost does not. Imagine, if you can, sending your 12-year-old daughter to live on a continent that is approximately 10,000 kilometers away. Imagine being the parent who waves goodbye at an airport, walks back to a car, and drives home to a house that is now missing a fundamental piece of its soul. Imagine parenting across a 7-hour time difference, which means that when Alex is having her worst day and needs her mother, it is the middle of the night in Manila. Imagine watching your daughter's most important matches on a live stream that buffers and freezes precisely when you need it most. Imagine being the emotional foundation for a homesick teenage girl who is carrying the weight of a family's hopes and dreams, while managing your own grief with enough discretion that she never has to carry yours on top of her own. That is what Mike and Riza did, for years, without complaint, without credit, without any guarantee that it would ever produce the outcome they were hoping for. One serious injury at the wrong moment, one crisis of confidence in the wrong tournament. One decision by a teenager who has had enough of the loneliness and the pressure and the relentless grind and simply wants to come home, and the entire investment, financial and emotional, could have evaporated in a single conversation. They knew that. They signed up for that uncertainty anyway, because they believed in their daughter with a certainty that outran every rational calculation. So, when Alex Eala writes that it is time for them to live in peace, she is not deploying a graceful platitude for a press release. She is bearing witness to a historical truth about two people whose sacrifice has no adequate vocabulary. And the $15 million deal is her response to that truth. the most eloquent, most generous, most deeply loving response available to her. Let us take a step back and look at the broader landscape, because the commercial significance of this deal extends far beyond one family's beautiful story. What this $15 million agreement represents for the Asian tennis market, for the WTA as a commercial entity, and for the trajectory of the sport in the fastest growing economic region on the planet is genuinely significant. We are living through a pivotal moment in the globalization of professional tennis. For decades, the sport's commercial center of gravity sat firmly in Europe and North America, with occasional excursions to Australia. The players who dominated the endorsement landscape were almost exclusively drawn from those markets, and the brands that poured money into tennis did so largely to reach audiences in those markets. That world is changing rapidly and irreversibly. The sports consumption appetite of Southeast Asia's rapidly expanding middle class is unlike anything the marketing world has seen in a generation. Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, the Philippines, these are economies with young populations, growing disposable incomes, and an intense hunger for athletic heroes they can genuinely call their own. They have not been waiting for someone from their part of the world to win Wimbledon before they engage with tennis. They have been waiting for someone from their part of the world to make them feel something. Alex Eala makes them feel something in ways that transcend sport entirely. She is simultaneously a deeply domestic Filipino hero and a genuinely international crossover figure, a combination that is almost impossibly rare and commercially almost priceless. She speaks perfect English, she trained in Spain, she competes across every major tennis market on earth. She carries the identity of Southeast Asia without it ever feeling like a marketing construct, because it is simply and authentically who she is. That authenticity cannot be manufactured in a brand strategy session. It can only be recognized and compensated appropriately, and now it has been. The $15 million deal is not the ceiling of what Alex Eala is worth commercially. It is arguably closer to the floor. As her WTA ranking continues to climb, as she begins competing in the final rounds of Grand Slam tournaments rather than the middle rounds, as her story becomes more widely known across markets that are currently only beginning to discover her, the commercial interest will multiply in ways that make the current deal look like a conservative opening position. The brands that moved first on Alex Eala in 2026 will in 5 years look like the most prescient investors in modern sports marketing history. The Asian tennis market is not sleeping anymore. It is wide awake, and it has its hero. Now let us talk about what this deal means for Alex Eala, the tennis player, because that dimension of the story is equally fascinating and perhaps counterintuitive. There is a school of thought in sports that financial security breeds complacency, that the hunger which drives extraordinary athletic achievement is fundamentally rooted in necessity, in the fear of failure, in the driving need to secure your future. Remove the financial pressure, the argument goes, and you remove the engine. It is a compelling theory. And in some cases, for some athletes, it has proven true. But Alex Eala is not that athlete. She never has been. The engine that drives her has never primarily been financial. We know this because we watched her compete before anyone was offering her $15 million for anything. We watched her battle through junior tournaments with the same ferocity she brings to WTA events. We watched her lose devastating matches and come back the next day with the same fire, the same focus, the same absolute refusal to let a setback define her trajectory. The motivation was always deeper than money. The motivation was always about proving something to herself, to her sport, to her country, to the family that sacrificed so much to put her on that court. Financial security does not extinguish that kind of drive. If anything, it clarifies and intensifies it. Because now, for the first time in her career, Alex Eala gets to compete in the pure state. She has solved the equation of external necessity. The parents are taken care of. The financial foundation is immovable. What remains is the tennis itself, stripped of everything except her own pursuit of what she can actually become when all the noise falls away. That is the psychological state in which athletes produce the best work of their careers. The state where every morning on the practice court is not shadowed by anxiety about the future, but illuminated by curiosity about the ceiling. What is my actual limit? How far can I actually go? How good can I actually be when I am playing purely for the love of what I am doing? We are about to find out. Because Alex Eala, fully funded, parents retired, commercial empire established, is walking onto the practice courts of 2026 with nothing left to prove to anyone except herself. And that, if history is any guide, is when truly great athletes do their most extraordinary work. The Grand Slam titles that Alex's fans have been dreaming about since she was a junior champion are not getting further away with this deal. They are getting closer. She is not satisfied. She is liberated. And there is a critical difference between those two states when you are competing at the highest level of professional sport.